If you ever wanted to know what tools I use for my charcoal drawings, well, today is that day. Cue intro. I've been saying for a while that I was going to do a video on the tools I use for my charcoal paintings, drawings. I like to call them paintings because I do a lot of work with a brush before I go in with my actual pastel pencils. But I've done a video on the tools I use for graphite. So here we go. Let's just kind of get started. And you can see there seems to be like a lot here, but I think it'll make more sense as we get going. I first use these tools right here for my abstracts. When I first start and I put down an abstract, let me grab one here so you can see it. So this would be an abstract that I'm kind of talking about. And that's where I use these tools here. And this is it's a Creative Color charcoal powder. I love this stuff. It doesn't seem to have the chunks that a lot of other brands do, especially cheap brands. It's not too expensive, which is nice, but it just goes down really nice and not a lot of chunks. I always start off with a big brush, a 1.5 inch brush. This is a master's touch. It's pretty darn soft. You can see, did you see that? I don't know if you could see it in the video, but the charcoal powder goes fluffing off. But this is pretty much how I start off the whole thing. It's a 1.5 inch wash brush, super soft. And then I have a harder bristle one to push in a little bit. I don't use this gosh awful much, but I do use it. And then I have another smaller hard bristle round brush. And this is one of my favorites. It's a wedge brush, and it's just a 1/4 inch, and it's a super soft. You can see it, the charcoal powder kind of coming off of that one as well. But this is what I use, and I just use the big brush, dip it in my charcoal powder, and just start brushing it on the painting. So that's what I use to get started to create the abstract. Then from there is where I start using my actual paint brushes here. And the two that I go to most is this one here. It's a number 6 Filbert brush. Really soft. It's got a nice round head to it. And it works really, really well. And this one is fairly clean, so it's picking up the charcoal really, really nice at this point. After I use this for another probably month or two, I'll have to get a new one because it'll get too loaded with charcoal and it won't pick up as nicely. But I start off with that. I like to do soft blends with this bigger one. It's number 12. And I'll put all these in. It's just a straight shader brush. But I'll put all these in a list in the comments line so you guys can see what they are. And then you'll see I use several different. Now these are almost the same as far as if you can see the faces. One is just cleaner than the other. This one you can tell has been used so much, but it doesn't pick up as much. But I love it because sometimes I just want to blend. I don't want to pick up too much charcoal. I just want to blend the charcoal. So since this brush has been used for a while, it's pretty loaded, and so it doesn't pick up a lot of charcoal. The newer the brush, especially like this one and even this one here, it'll pick up a lot of charcoal. So it's got a nice sharp edge, so I can go sideways or forward, and it works really well. And these are both number 2s. They're called flat shaders. It's pretty simple. And then this is another Filbert brush. This one is a little bit more rounded, like it's round brush, just like this one here, except it's a 4, not a 6. This one's pretty loaded. So once again, it's not going to pick up as much charcoal. So I like to use it to blend larger areas with. I always want to have at least one of these. It's super short. It's real hard, and it's a what they call it, a 0400B, and I use this to scrub. So you can see there's still charcoal in there. Just get in there. If I need to scrub something, this is what I'm going to use to scrub it into the paper fibers. So those are the brushes. Those are the main brushes that I use. And now let's move over to the actual pencils themselves. I have a tendency to use up to a 4B. I go darker, but I use something else to go darker. So I start off with a 2H EX hard charcoal. That's probably my go-to. HB hard is my second go-to. I go a 2B medium and a 4B soft. These are pretty much the 4 pencils that I like to use the most as far as getting a darker color. I also use a straight charcoal white. These are the interesting ones. These are fairly new for me, but very fun. Because one is what they call an Arctic white and one is a pure white. And the Arctic white is definitely more blue. This one is a little cooler, so it's kind of nice. It mixes a little better depending on the type of paper that I'm using. Blenders, straight blenders, straight paper blenders. And then of course I use, to lengthen my pencils as they get shorter and shorter and shorter. But this here is what they call vine charcoal. And I will use this to get my darks. As a matter of fact, I brought a piece of paper here so you guys can see a little bit. Scoot these to the side, more center this here. So you can see some of these differences. And matter of fact, I'll put that to the side. I'm going to just start here. You can hear, it's really important, you can hear, it's even pulling, it's hard, it's gonna dig into those fibers. So this was the standard 2H. This is the 2B. You can already tell how much darker that is. This is the HB, and it should go right in between. I grabbed the wrong one, but that's okay. And what you can tell the differences is that this is not very chalky, a little bit more chalky. This is very chalky, and you can tell because it doesn't even, in order to cover the paper's fibers, I'm going to to layer it up a little bit, but I'm going to get the deepest, nicest dark. Look at that. Look how dark that's getting. And I can get that too with this one here if I layer it nicely. But you can tell this one and this one, I mean, visually, they look about the same. So why not use an HB hard and just do some layering and be able to keep these cleaner lines, then move to an HB where it's a little harder to get the lines, harder to sharpen that. This HB and this hard here, I can sit and sharpen these to a really nice sharp point. Just got to be careful with this one because it will eat your fibers, especially if you're using a watercolor paper that can get in there. So the next one that I have is a 4B. And I will tend, you can see that this is keeping pretty good lines. A little harder to sharpen, but it can do it. But look how sharper those are than the 2B. 2B, for some weird reason, is just a little softer, and it's harder to create those sharp lines. So, white, and you can't see that. So those are the two, and then I use, well, the four, and then I use this vine. And I like this vine charcoal. Look how just really quick it gets a black, really nice deep black. And the cool thing is that when you're doing a powder charcoal, we'll just go ahead and do a little bit of this for fun here since we're playing. So I'll put some on here like that. I usually take this, knock it off, blow it off a little bit. And here's where I want to show you, when you're using a too hard pencil, watch how it kind of pushes, it doesn't blend really well with that. It'll have a tendency to push it off a little bit, push the charcoal off a little bit. It's hard to show in that particular thing, this paper is really, but if the paper wasn't as grippy as this, or just, you know, it just, the fibers, a lot of fiber, it really is holding the charcoal extremely well. It doesn't, your harder pencils will push this powder charcoal off. And the cool thing about this is this seems to keep and mix better with the powder charcoal that's already laid down. And you can see it's starting to already move in. So I'll start. You can see the brush strokes. This is what I love about it, because now you can start painting in this. You can see you see as it gets in, I'll wipe it off. When you wipe it off, it just pulls up a little bit more. And as soon as it gets full, it backs off. So this is why I like to say it's painting. It's I don't like to call it a charcoal drawing. It's not. It's not a drawing. It is, but it's a painting too. And I think that you give a little bit of disservice to the fact that you are painting. You might not be painting color, but you're painting in black and white. It's kind of it's a subtractive process, but you're using your brush strokes. And when you look at a lot of my pieces, you can see some of those brush strokes in there that's left behind. Maybe not exactly the same as an oil painting, but still the same. The other thing I use a lot of is a kneaded eraser. This is what I get to get my highlights. So I'm going to come in here. And once again, you see as it gets loaded like this, and it gets harder to pick up, but then you can kind of rub it in a little bit. You can blend a little bit more with that. So I know it's small, it's a little hard to see, but I think, you know, let's zoom in real quick here just for fun. And I think you guys can really get the idea of what's going on. I have a tendency to really work my kneaded erasers, you know, pull the next clean line. And you can see it's a lot of layers. I'll even, you know, I do this and I'll end up painting over that highlight that I just did, but it's still leaving it there. But I'll do it again and again and again until I get just the right highlight that I'm looking for. And I end up erasing a little bit more, or maybe a little bit less, until I get it the way I want it. You know, it's really starting to, that little area is really starting to kind of come together nicely. It's feeling rounded. It's feeling really round, which I like a lot. And then just to top that off, you just come in and with your white charcoal, and poof, all of a sudden it almost looks like this tentacle that's in there, you know, and it has a little bit of these. And this is where I let the piece show me the way. You can see all these lines in here from so I could go in and start pulling out some of that texture. But there you go. You know, you could almost see that these are almost looking like tentacles that are coming down from something. Oh, that's just too light. Well, you just brush over it just nice and gently. And there you go. So anyhow, those are the tools. I will list those out, and I hope you enjoyed. So, and this is kind of how my desk usually looks, minus all these things, because these are always already over on the station where I actually do the abstracts. So thanks for following. Give me a like if you can, and a follow, and you guys just take care.